Today we're reviewing Superman 2025, the James Gunn film. It's the first movie in the new DC universe and, completely done by James Gunn, and that's exciting. It's exciting for me because of all the work that he's done already. Quite frankly, I'm excited to see what he does considering how Disney treated him. This will be pretty nice. So before I get started swinging here, let's be clear about what this movie wants to be. This isn't a Man of Steel remake, rehash. It's a full reboot and launch of James Gunn's DCU. I mean, essentially, it is something that does have competitive legs against Marvel because James Gunn has now switched sides, and it's exciting to see what he brings to DC, where there's been a lot of, quite frankly, mismanagement. The budget is around $225 million. Runtime is 2 hours and 9 minutes, and it pulled over 600 million worldwide. That's insane. And I hate to say this, but it's just James Gunn is just a brilliant man. That's how I feel about it. I don't know why Disney would have treated him the way they did, but they did it, and here we are. So really putting the nail in the coffin for Disney in this. The tone is way more colorful and hopeful than Snyder, in my opinion. It's more playful. It's more maybe down to earth and not so gaudy and gothic. It's like the classic Superman feel. It's like the kind of Superman that you would think of when you think of, further back, where it's like the black and white DC. Because lately they've been trying to compete with Marvel, and to do that they've had to kind of gray up the DC comics. But the DC comics really were always more black and white than Marvel. Marvel was always about their anti-heroes and their questionable stuff and things like that. With the DC, it's like, okay, they're becoming more gray. So this actually takes it back to a time where it feels very true to Superman's actual character and not just trying to add stuff to get people to go see the film, if that makes sense. Now, it's mixed with some modern geopolitics, and James Gunn, quite frankly, he's got a bunch of weird side characters in there. And especially the damn dog steals every scene. I don't know if anyone felt the same, but, yeah. So Krypto is here, and I'm not going to lie, that the dog almost hijacked the entire film. That's what he did. That's what the dog did. I might be the only Krypto hater, but not saying that I don't like it as a thing, but Krypto's a little dickhead in the film, which is crazy. But yeah, that's what this movie's trying to be, is all of these things I just mentioned. And I just wanted to wrap that up and encapsulate it before moving forward, because I don't think people should approach this looking at it from Snyder's point of view or the comics point of view or whatever. This is a James Gunn special, essentially, and I do feel like it feels good. Now, Superman opens with Clark getting involved with an international mess. He basically tells one country, hey, stop invading your neighbor, and puts him right in the middle of this geopolitical situation. Back in Metropolis, he runs into the Hammer, and this metahuman who's absolutely wrecks him in front of everybody. Now, first time we've really seen this Superman get humbled on that level, and he has to retreat to the Fortress of Solitude with the help of Krypto, of course, who drags his broken ass out of there. At the fortress, we get the classic Krypton message from his mom and dad, but it's glitched, and we only hear that we sit here, you here to save part. Later, Lex gets his hand on this and gets the rest of the message by, unencrypting it, basically. And it says, conquer Earth, breed a bunch of Kryptonian babies, have fun, son. Cool, we out. So overnight, Superman becomes this, from big blue Boy Scout to alien conqueror in waiting in the public eye. Now, I don't know how many people didn't want to breed with Superman, but it was on the high level apparently. Now, meanwhile, Lex Luthor is doing his tech billionaire, I'm totally helping humanity thing. I mean, where have we heard that before? Don't don't look at my war crimes thing. He's behind the hammer, obviously, who turns out to be Ultraman, a clone of Superman he's using as a weapon and propaganda tool. What we also get packed in here, absolutely just, even if the movie is a longer movie, there's just so many different things just absolutely jammed in here. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't have too many lulls. It really does just absolutely keeping the pace. We also get the Justice Gang, which is pretty cool. Huge kaiju attack, obviously very cool. Lex running a pocket universe prison, you know, keeping his enemies like Pokemon. Wow. Superman gets depowered the kryptonite. You know, Superman has to stop Lex, stop the dimensional rift, save Krypto, win back the world's trust, a bunch of stuff. And at the end, you know, his cousin shows up drunk. So there's that. I'm assuming that will be in the next movie. That's a lot going on. Let's talk about whether that actually works or not. So the first category that we're judging on is going to be genre. Okay, does it honor the superhero comic book blockbuster genre? What do we expect from this? We expect big, clear hero moments. That's what we look for in, obviously, in a superhero film. Moral conflict, not just punching. You know, at least one oh shit that Superman scene. Obviously, you know, we've always had those in every Superman, so that would honor the genre. On that level, this movie does deliver. You've got your classic rescue stuff, him saving civilians from the kaiju attack, and other heroes just wanting to nuke it. You know, the same kind of Superman ideology that he always carries through every single thing that are honoring the comics. You've got your ideological clash with Lex, who's basically just jealous that an alien got love while he didn't, you know, get worship for his genius. Then you've got your human anchor, Lois, and the Kents reminding him, you know, who he is, and definitely not to listen to his parents' weird eugenics voicemail. The big thing for me, this is it actually feels like a Superman movie again. So I think for Superman in a superhero film, it just feels right, finally, again. It feels like a complete honoring of Superman. And even if you liked the previous actors who have played Superman, you've got to admit this one feels good, regardless of who's good. You could have put anyone there, and I would have said the same thing, as long as the acting kept up with him. I don't really think it matters about, you know, who's playing the Superman. If it works, it works. That's how I really do feel about this. And so I'm going to go ahead, because this is an absolute superhero movie with a real Superman, and it's written well and it's done well, I'm going to give this a 2. So the first category, genre, it's getting a 2 from me. Absolutely. Now, category 2 is actually craft. So this is writing, directing, and performances. And this is maybe where I might lose a little people. On performances, everyone delivered. Even Lex, I thought would be a bad pick. I knew he was going to shave his head for the film, and he did. He didn't wear any kind of, like, weird thing that made it, you know, him not have hair. He really did shave his head for the film. So that was pretty good to see that he was dedicated to it. But I did feel when I first saw it that I was going to, like, feel disconnected from him in a way, or that there should have been someone else in, you know, because they could have cast anyone to be Lex, someone more formidable, someone more who knew how to play the intelligence game better. But I think it actually went okay. Like, I feel like it went okay, and everyone from Lois, Superman, all the casting felt good. Acting wise, no complaints. Everyone shows up, everyone does a good job, and they play the characters well. And even if you don't like a character, It didn't mean they didn't act the way that they should based on the information that they were given. And so I thought that that was fine. Now, writing and direction, and this is where I'm going to dock it a bit, and I might lose some people here, but I'll explain. So the movie actually has themes. It's about what happens when a god tries to play world police, how easy it is to spin someone into a villain with like one edited message, public perception and things like that, and how Clark has to pick between, what Krypton wanted for him and what Earth taught him, and, Gunn tries to keep the tone mostly balanced. There are jokes, but it's not full blown what we've seen with other superhero movies where it's like there's a whole bus of people dying and they're like giggling and like making little quibs. It's not that bad, which is thank fucking God, because I was to a point where I was getting really annoyed at that, because it's like we can't just have a serious scene anymore. It has to be a funny. And so thankfully he does really good on this. No issues with that. Now, we'll get into the negatives here, but I'm going to just let me explain. I'm so sorry, because I know this is one that people care about. The script is overstuffed. Okay? They are trying to do too much in one film, and they could have done not less, but they could have. I mean, we have a 2-hour film, and it felt just like the script is just chocked full and juggling so much stuff at once. It does feel like they were using this movie to introduce characters so they can get other movies going. And I wanted it to be a Superman movie, right? And it was. But it felt like they were basically saying like, don't forget to like and subscribe to our cinematic universe. Like, look at these other characters, guys. It's like, really? I am not a big fan of Hawkgirl. I get why she's important. I've read the comics. But at the same time, like, they're just putting those guys in there and in pivotal scenes so that we see them and we roll along with their stuff. Now, did they use them effectively? Yeah, but at the same time, it does feel like they were putting them in there for just that reason alone and giving them screen time for just that reason, when, Superman's more than capable of fighting his own battles, typically. But, it is Lex, so, he's always got one up on him. At least there wasn't a lot of the jokes and undercutting moments. There were a few, but it wasn't Marvel bad, like I'm saying. So Craft, I'm not going to give it a perfect score, but it's definitely not mid, okay? But we have a limited range here, so I'm going to give it a 1 out of 2 for Craft. So really strong performances, strong, solid direction, but the script is just thick with stuff that they could have paced better. Now, speaking of pace, that brings us to our next category. Category 3 is cohesion and pace. Does this movie feel like one movie, or does it feel like 3 episodes smashed together? That's what I had to ask myself, because listen, a 2-hour movie isn't some wild length for a superhero flick. It's not. The problem is how much they tried to cram into that time, and the way that they had to pace their movie out and skip over scenes that could have used more time or explanation in order to get the next fight going or get the next thing going. Now, some of you would say, oh, well, I like that they didn't linger on certain things. I like that they didn't do that. And while that is true, when it comes down to writing something good and having something that really works, I think cohesion and pace, this is a good way to talk about that. So we had, the geopolitics Act 1, Superman's first big failure, Lex starts his planning, Daily Planet stuff. Then Act 2, Fortress, message twist, kaiju attack, Justice Gang, public turning on him, Pocket Universe setup, Act 3, Pocket Universe shellbreak, farm reset, a farm reset with the Kents, final Rift battle, Ultraman fight, Lex gets taken down, and then at the end they even plug the cousin. And when you hear it said like that, you're like, oh shit, okay, I see what he's saying. Because when you look at like a lot of the other movies, if they're doing that, it's a problem. It's not like they have like a goal that they're going toward. It's not like they have a goal they're going toward. It's going toward this moment to moment. You know, I'm sure that the way they wrote this was they wrote down the scenes that they wanted and then they made the stuff up in between, because that's how it really feels. They said, okay, well, we got to plug, the cousin, so let's get that in there somewhere. We've got to do this, so let's get that in there somewhere. And I do feel like they filmed it very like separate mini movies and then stitched them all together. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes down to like, we just want a superhero like Superman movie, that's what we're there for. Again, it's like everything was put together. It feels like a season premiere and finale all smashed into one movie. You know, it's like, why not just make it a TV show at that point? There was some pacing wobbles. The Pocket Universe section is neat and conceptually, but, you know, it slows the movie down right when you expect it to be ramping up. And the final battle is a classic modern superhero thing where there's a portal, the city's ripping apart, and then 4 fights happening all at once, and you're just kind of vibing instead of feeling the actual stakes of it. That said, again, I wasn't bored. And there aren't really giant dead zones where nothing happens. That's the positive from all this. So actually, some of what I'm saying is actually a good thing. But it's the opposite. It's too much happening. It's too much happening all at the same time. And if 1/3 of your movie is just an advertisement for other movies that are coming, and someone like me notices that, maybe the viewer won't really notice, but someone like me who's judging it and who knows exactly what they're doing, and I'm cognizant of it, yeah, it's a different story. But I'd obviously rather not be staring at a wall for 20 minutes, so who knows how they'd fill that time otherwise. Could have been worse. I may be off base here. It could have been worse them doing it the other way, but, you know, we'll never know. But regardless, I'm going to give it a 1 out of 2 on cohesion and pace. You know, it really wasn't messy, but it was entertaining. But you do feel like you're noticing what they're doing. And unfortunately, that's what I have to, you know, call out at times. Now, we're moving on to memorability. So fast forward 6 months from now, what do you remember besides, yeah, I saw it, right? And for me, Superman, especially because it's James Gunn, has a lot of real staying power. This is a movie that you're going to remember, you're going to tell people about, you're going to go on about it. And just the visual of Superman and Krypto sitting on the edge of the world, watching the sunrise, basically. It's like, you think of moments like that, you think of the rest of the Krypton message playing, and you just watch, you know, Clark's soul leave his body. You know, things like that, and it really sticks with you. It does have a lot of staying power. Lex being taken out by the dog, you know, no matter how seriously you want it to be, it's hilarious. It's going to live rent-free in people's heads. The dog alone is enough to have the film be really memorable in the way that matters. You know, it's not like we're talking about old Smallville TV show or old Superman. Seeing him fly for the first time is not really going to do it for you in 2025, right? But I did feel like we haven't even seen his full potential yet. That's for later movies. And there's a lot of dilemmas that could happen in the future. And I feel like there's so much lore and comic and stuff behind Superman that we'll see more of that in the future. What we did get to see was memorable enough and passionate enough, and especially for someone like me who's actually seen like the behind the scenes with Superman being directed so passionately and so like, wow. I mean, these are the kind of movies right here that will have you sit there and say like, oh, my top 3 Superman movies, and this is going to end up being one of them. So for that reason, yeah, I'm going to give memorability a 2 out of 2, because I don't think this is one that we're going to not talk about later. In fact, it came out a while ago now, a little minute ago now, and there's still people, I mean, you're looking up a review of it right now. I do feel like memorability being 2 out of 2 is very legit on the score. Just straight up. Now we're going to move on to our final category, which is popularity. Now, I'm going to be honest, Rotten Tomatoes audience score on this one was 90%. That's amazing. That's incredible. That is so hard to do, especially with 25,000 plus reviews. That is an incredibly hard thing to do, even for video games, especially for movies. Especially for movies. You know, what did the people think? They loved it. So it's 80% or higher. I give it a two popularity points, which is just absolutely fantastic. It really means people cared and loved it. Very few people absolutely hated it, which is fantastic for a superhero movie made by DC. You have to remember, just because it's James Gunn doesn't mean it wasn't made by DC. And if people need to be aware that DC has not had such a disgustingly beautiful response by people in such a long time. I really worried that they would never recover from that Green Lantern movie. I really worried. But you know what? They recovered from the Green Lantern movie. They recovered from the original Fantastic Four. They recovered from a lot of it, okay? And now we're here. Let's move on to the final verdict. So the final verdict. I've got genre being 2, craft being 1, cohesion and pace being 1, memorability being 2, and popularity being 2. And so that's Superman 2025 being a total out of 8 out of 10, which is a must see. On my movie meter system, must see is basically like, this movie is something that you need to see regardless of anything else, and you should definitely watch it. So I'm very confident in this score being as close to accurate as I think. Even with the little rough edges, I still think that this absolutely deserves being a must-see. I think everyone, maybe even if you don't like superhero movies, you might still like this. Because usually I am dependent on my reviews. I say, well, if you're this kind of person, you'll love it regardless. But in this case, I think even if you don't like superhero movies, you might like it. There were some flaws to it, but not enough to outweigh the good. And honestly, the flaws that I pointed out were more nitpicks than anything. We really don't know what they could have compensated with that would have brought it to a 2 on those categories. And quite frankly, must see is the highest category anyway. Even if it was a 10, wouldn't have mattered. It's right where it belongs. But if you grew up with Superman and you like the heart and the soul of Superman in the comics, James Gunn did an absolutely insanely good job on this. And if you haven't seen it, and you're just trying to find a review and you're trying to watch a review, I absolutely recommend watching it. So anyway, that is my movie meter breakdown for Superman 2025. Let me know in the comments, what would your score have been out of 10? Do you think Gunn was actually, did this really well, and do you think he should be on another reboot, or do you think we even needed another reboot of Superman? Like, what do you think you would like to see from Gunn in the future? You think they keep him on? You think they let him take control of the entire DCU like I do? I'd love to hear what you think.